All right, this is a new work record system we're going to implement. It uses Google Spreadsheets, so everybody can access it who has access to this link. The way it works is we're going to enter in information that's going to allow us to track how much each department time is being spent in each department, which is in this area here. It's going to allow us to give a sense of what the major projects for each person are to be done in a given week. So I'll quickly run through this from left to right, running through each of these points. So the way it works is each Google spreadsheet on its own will be a separate file. So September will be a separate file, and there will be a separate sheet for each person. So and it will start. Each one will be a separate month. That will start on the first day of the month, then end on the last day of the month. So here we are starting. Since we're starting this halfway through September, it starts on Monday 22nd, and it goes through the 30th. And there's a few things about spreadsheets. If people don't know them, we will go through it. There will be some sort of tutorials. If you have questions or things are confusing, we can deal with those later. But to say that the first basically 10 plus columns are frozen, which means no matter how far you start going to the right, scrolling to the right, they don't move. So you can see here that we lose a bit of now. When you open this Google spreadsheet, it will be at a certain size. I'm going to and in Apple, actually this is in doesn't matter. This is in Google. If you go Command 0 in Apple, it puts it at full size. This will take a second. It takes a second to reset, and you'll see that we cannot see all the way to the edge of the screen. If I go Apple minus, which up here shows us at 90% of size, I can see just to the end of where we want to see to. So if you want to see everything all at once, go Apple minus once, and then you'll be at 90% of size. And if you want to go back to the default size, you go Apple 0. So the first column we've got here, what's going to happen is the month of September we're going to use this as a test. People are just going to fill it out, and whether it's done correctly or completely, it's not really that critical. It's more to learn about the process. So I'm just going to quickly run through the columns here, and then we're going to fill it out for someone. So the first, when you open this, there'll be one called template, which will actually will be hidden at that point. It'll be called hide sheet, but in this case, I'm just going to use it because it really doesn't matter. Actually, I will duplicate it so we don't. So when it comes in, there will be a sheet, and in this one, I'm going to pick somebody to do this for, and I'm going to pick Katrina. So when this file, each month there will be a file, and it will have everybody going across here as separate sheets. Katrina would be one. So the first column is major goals to be accomplished during the week. So in the case of Katrina, this could be send out British Columbia Golf newsletter on Wednesday the 24th. And then I'll just leave that. That's one. We'll give her that. That's the only sort of major goal to be accomplished. The second column over here has the days of the week, AM and PM, and basically I'll come back and talk about this more detail in a second. Total hours worked during that day, and whether or not you submitted a daily report at the end of the day, which everyone is supposed to do who works. This is our breakdown of our office by department, and these colors here, which I've implemented use of. You notice accounting is sort of this reddy brown. That's the first color here. The second one for administration is red. The content and editorial departments are there. So basically, they just follow that from left to right. And these are all of the departments that we have that defined in the office, which also appear in something I'll just mention to you now that is being worked on, which is a full organizational chart. And you notice the colors here in it follow those same colors. So I'm developing a color coding system for departments. Not that I necessarily need it, but it's just that we have some consistency. Over here is a listing of all the projects that we do in the office. And then over here is the the WIG, which is our wildly important goal. For the people in the office who've been exposed to it, this is a part of the 4DX program, the system that we're going to be implementing. For those who don't worry about it yet. And then finally over here is the duty specific to your job description. So in the case of Katrina, I'm just going to show over here. Here are the different specific responsibilities that Katrina actually submits right now as part of her specific duties. Now I can just copy those, take them over here, and I'll take a couple of them right now just so we don't need them all. And they go right in. And you'll see there that there's a number of articles posted. Now in this case, she's filled in that as well, so I'm going to just get rid of that. And there's the second one. So here's some individual responsibilities that Katrina has. So now we'll talk about Katrina, let's say on Monday. This is split into two. We'll start off with going from the number one and go left to right here. So first of all, this process should be done daily at noon and end of day, taking no more than 3 minutes each time. Do not clock out in FileMaker Pro until completed. This is primarily for people in our office in Duncan. Other people are not sort of held to the same. You don't have to clock out because you're not clocking in. You don't use FileMaker Pro for keeping your record of your time. And you're not necessarily working 8 hours at a time. For people who are in the office, and I'll pretend for the purposes of this that Katrina does work in our office just in doing this. So when I get back to this in 1 sec, I'll start with column one. So obviously column one, enter major goals for the week. Either can be project related. In her case, this is for British Columbia Golf, which is right there. Or it could be a number of ad designs. A complete 25 ad designs that could be put in here. And you're supposed to guesstimate the percent complete at the end of each day of the week. So we'll talk about this for a second. Suppose Katrina knows that she's sending out a British Columbia Golf newsletter on Wednesday, and that means she knows she's going to have to do some work during the week up to and including Wednesday when she's supposed to send that. So she might say, I'm going to do 2 hours of work on British Columbia Golf for this newsletter, for this project. On Monday, I'm going to do 3 hours on Tuesday, and then sending it out on Wednesday will be another 2 hours. After that, I'm not going to do any work for British Columbia Golf. So basically, there are 7 hours of work, which goes up. See this number down here? That's a total for that column. So basically, before and during the week, she sort of can put those numbers. The only reason I put these in here, these are what she's should be doing. So she can put this over, once she sort of figured that out, she would put this over here saying, plan to spend 2 hours Monday, 3 Tuesday, and 2 Wednesday. And the reason I'm doing that over here is because she cannot leave these in here because this is where she enters what she actually, this is where the downtime she does spend on it. So let's come back over here to column number 2. Enter 12 hours worked in column twice daily. Done first at 12 noon with update at the end of the day. Obviously, as I said, this is for full-time employees, but that's what they would do. So let's pretend Katrina's in her office, and she starts work at 9 o'clock, and so she stops at 12. So she would put 3 hours of work in, and let's say during that period she was researching content, and so she spent 2.5 hours doing that, and half hour talking to Brian Outram or communicating with Brian via email about some upcoming projects. There would be her 3 hours. Suppose she actually, by some reason, she also was made a mistake and made this 3 hours on its own. You'll notice that, see, she's entered 3 hours of work, but she's put a total 3.5 hours, and that shows up as a minus red 0.05. I want to come in here. You do not fill in this unassigned hours column. This is intended to tell you whether you have allocated all of your hours in departments or in projects. Here's the unassigned hours column here, or specific duties. It is okay if you don't assign all of your hours, because in essence you're saying that unassigned hours column then is a miscellaneous that I just wasn't really sure what I used it for. But if your number turns red like this one, it means that you have too many hours assigned. You need to make or I guess I should just say reduce hours, so it goes back to at least 0. So you can see here, so when we take this back down to 2.5 hours spent on content work, bang, all of a sudden it's at 0 and it's correct. You'll also see down here that it's entered in as this 5 hours is now how much time she spent by department through the week. So, and the work that she was doing here was 2.5 hours. In terms of project related, administration is not really project related. If Brian and her had spoken specifically about one entire project during that entire period, she could include it over here. And let's say for argument's sake that she did. They were talking about the upcoming issue of Inside Golf and some work that they were, articles that need to be written. So that administration could be applied here. Just by the same token, if it was on a multitude of subjects, you just would put nothing in, and therefore would stay over here as 0.05 as miscellaneous or combined. Then in the afternoon, after lunch, at the end of her workday, she worked another, let's say, another 5 hours, and she was working exclusively on content and editorial, did nothing else, 5 hours on that. She did that entire work period on British Columbia Golf, so she put that in here. And we notice and what she was doing through this period, we're going to say, especially for this one, she was posting articles for that entire period, so she could put this over in her duty specific to your job section as well. And down here, she was doing the same thing. She spent 5 hours posting articles for the newsletter. That's basically is all that you have to do. You have to enter in what you did by department, what you did, if it applied to a specific project, you put it in there, and every person in the office will have a series of set duties specific to your job description. I'll give an example. An appropriate duty is something that is an action that's quantifiable, repetitive, and is a complete process. So if you sent an email, if you're sending emails about the Top Tracks Award and getting pros to fill it out, that the sending of the emails is not a duty specific to your job description. Communicating communicating editorially arguably might be enough of an action. But what I'm really saying is these duties specific to your job description will be developed over time, and we'd like to make them, as I'll say, to be inclusive as opposed to be getting down to real minutia. We want them to be fairly broad strokes, so that that I wouldn't like to see anybody with more than 10 specific duties to a job description. So that really covers this. There's nothing really else to be said about this because everything else is calculated calculated for you. I will sort of follow through here. Suppose we finish off this week and, I'll just say the numbers were the same, 3 and 5 for Katrina through the entire week. You'll notice as we put them, as she fills them in for each day, lo and behold, by the end of Wednesday, she's worked for 24 hours on the total hours worked during the week. We'll come back over here and talk about this. At the end of Monday, when she'd worked for 7.5 hours on the British Columbia newsletter, she's not complete the project. She hasn't sent it out on the Wednesday, which is what the whole purpose of this exercise is. But she's already spent 7.5 hours. So, assuming that we're going to say that the sending it out is about 25% of the workload, she would feel that as being 75% complete. Because she's still going to have to do some work on Wednesday sending it out. So in terms of her budget that she had, she thought it was only going to take 5 hours to get all the editorial ready, and it took 7.5. Not a huge, I'm saying that's not really critically important, but it's just something we like, we would note. That is something that she would include in on a related but distinct subject, which are the daily reports that I expect everybody to submit. So she would put a single line in, budgeted 5 hours to be done over Monday and Tuesday for British Columbia newsletter content. Actually completed on Monday, but it took 7.5 hours. Great, and it is what it is, and that would be an excellent item to be included in a daily report. When she does, if you note here under number 3, we go look at point number 3. Submit daily report, taking 5 minutes max. I don't expect you guys to spend too much time doing this. It's really just to tell me some of the things that are going on, what you think of being important, and I will respond based on what you say and tell you whether that's really relevant, or maybe when I hear something else saying, geez, you should have included that in a daily report. So if you enter one, you put a 1 in here. It doesn't matter whether you put it, I'll put it at the end of the day. And notice that now it says down here, one daily report submitted. You're supposed to, the weekly target. If you notice down here, this is the final thing I've got to sort of talk about, is the weekly target. Basically, Katrina is target for this week is 40 hours for her to be working for 40 hours, and which is 5 days at 8 hours per day, as it turns out. So she's right on track with that. If she continues at the same clip, you'll watch for Thursday and Friday. All of a sudden, she's worked 40 hours. The target was 40 hours. Her variance is 0. If she did not put a daily report in for Monday, but put one in for Wednesday and one for Friday, she would have 3 daily reports submitted. The target is 5. You're supposed to do it every day. Her variance would be -2. And as time, with what we're going to do in September, basically, guys, I just want everybody to get used to putting some numbers in here. Whether you do it accurately or not really doesn't matter. It really, really makes no difference at all. The idea is just to get some exposure to this, and more importantly, to get your feedback going, how long is this really taking me? This is not working, or wouldn't it be neat to do this, that, or the other? That's really the stage we're at right now. I'd like to see this thing totally live when we get to October. And that sort of covers it. I will send a link to everybody of both this YouTube video as well as the link to this direct Google spreadsheet page. And I'll be looking for comments and questions, and we'll get this thing teed up. And over time, I'll sort of explain to you its value. But to give you a quick just point of it, it's going to allow us to start knowing where we are actually spending our time. And it's something to this point that we have really not tracked, and I would like for us to do it for a whole bunch of reasons. But this is the start point of it. Okay, good stuff. Thank you.